expecting Kendall.
This is Mike, I'm here.
Oh, hi, Mike. I guess we just have Mike and Ella.
Looks like it, just Mike and Ella.
Okay. So everybody that is here has been here before, so we will not go through introductions. But you all saw in Ella's email that had the attachment that talked about the agenda and had the link to zoom in if you needed to. It also had the minutes in there. And so at the beginning of each meeting, we're asking if anybody saw any changes or questions they had about minutes of last meeting so that we can get those approved and in the record. No questions or concerns?
We approved the minutes.
Okay. We'll go for that. All right, financial report.
Yep, nothing's changed since the last meeting. Honestly, nothing's changed since we bought our fare tickets. So we're still sitting at $4,283.01.
Okay. Funding team report, is that different than the financial report?
Yep, the CWDG application hasn't opened yet, and that's the main project of the funding team. So we're still waiting for that application to open, and haven't heard anything in the past month.
And Josh is not here. I imagine he would be the one to know if that's about to happen.
Unfortunately, I don't think we're gonna know if it's about to happen. It's just gonna be when that opens, and it has not yet opened.
Okay, Gary is making a comment. Speak up, Gary.
It closes February 28th. Gotta have the applications, the PNRC to actually 26th. So that's the deadline for that.
Okay, did you hear that, Ella?
Josh, if he's not here, he did say, in the board meeting that he's working with Ashley, later this week, I believe, to finalize the last edits on that application, and then we'll probably send it off. So she's the one who gotta get it to her minutes.
Did you hear that, Ella?
Yep.
Okay. All right, outreach team report. Ella.
Sounds good. So we're still chugging along through our 5th grade wildfire education visits. They're going well. We have a bunch lined up for January and February. And so far, I think we have all of our slots filled for helpers on that. So thank you everybody who's volunteered. We are kicking around the idea of doing a wildfire movie night. So if you have any great ideas for locations, that's kind of where we're getting hung up on right now, is calling around and figuring out where we might be able to host that, do an educational wildfire movie. We are also in the works of planning another reduced smoke workshop for this spring. So we're in conversation with Dr. Kolb, as well as chatting with some other potential speakers and hoping to set a date at our next outreach team meeting. So keep that on your calendars. And if you are interested in helping out with this workshop, it was a pretty big hit last year. So if it's something that you're interested in helping with, just reach out to me or Judy, or come to that next outreach team meeting.
And before you move on to the next item, on that workshop, we thought maybe Al, you would have something for ranchers to educate them on field burning and things like that by.
Yeah, we talked about doing that around in March, I think.
Yeah, we need to get a date nailed down pretty soon. We have an outreach team meeting coming up at the end of the month, but I wanted input from people here too. Because Dr. Kolb wants to do it again, but I need to nail down a date. And so we want to know how far along you are with your,
Okay, we've got a meeting next Monday for the Right to Farm and Ranch Board, and I'll present it again. And we had some interest last fall when I mentioned it,
right,
and so they said, well, just let us know when you want to do it. Well, I'll see if we can get them prepped. And, there's 8 members in the or 10 members in the Farm and Ranch Board. So that's really not enough to stimulate a meeting. But we need to have the Ranch Farm and Ranch Board put out feelers to see if we can get enough people lined up to do a small seminar.
right. Well, you talked earlier or later last year about some ideas that you had for how to encourage ranchers to do more safe burning, more efficient burning without burning fences down and things. Do you have a specific plan in mind to present that might be one of the presentations during this workshop?
The- Yeah, I'll give something ready.
So you think you might
Well, I've
need a
got
half an hour or less?
probably 20-30 minutes.
Okay, so we can count on that. And then Ella and I also talked about maybe getting the gal, Mary Anderson from the health department in Helena to talk about air quality issues. So that would
Yes, she's
be,
in.
that would be 3 different topics. So if anybody has other ideas about things to include in this workshop, send an email to me or Ella or come to our outreach meeting this month.
Are we planning kind of a similar format, like a half a day over lunch and lunch provided, or?
We haven't gotten that far. Yes, Christina.
I'm thinking that, there's this longitudinal study that they're doing at UM of Sealy Lake exposure to smoke. And they have a lot of really great data that hits close to home about what happens when you really can't leave and long-term exposures and those effects. So you might reach out to, if you need a contact, I could ask my husband to tell me who's the best person to call, but they're following up on those people, especially the children for long term. So it might be interesting to hear what the findings are.
Right.
Think about
Yeah.
it. I mean,
I'd love to get that contact.
okay. Fine.
And Blake, you look like you were shaking your head like you knew something about that. Oh, you were just in agreement.
Visually.
Blake supports that idea. All right,
And then potentially we could, I've been in contact with Sam Scott at Bureau of Business and Economic Research, so for the division. So he could talk to us about activity fuels and alternatives for disposing of things, markets and so on, if we need another speaker. He is gonna be available for our tail end of the meeting, participation at our March meeting, but this could be in addition to that. But we
Right.
can talk more about that January 30th.
okay. All right, sorry to
Yeah, no,
interrupt
that's a
you.
great idea. No
Okay.
problem.
I bet you're not doing assessments in Hawaii.
No assessments in Hawaii. But after those Maui fires, maybe they should look into some of these preparedness aspects. Maybe I'll see if I can get the work detail out here. But for the assessment team, kind of just starting to ramp up some of that marketing for getting folks on the list for spring assessment. So putting together some social media stuff, and chatted with Gary about the potential of working with the county, or if we just do a DNRC and Fire and Route collaboration of doing a spring mailer. So stay tuned for that. Chatting about funding and what that might entail, if it's a smaller mailer just for assessments, or if it's going to be a larger pamphlet like was done in 2022. But that's on the horizon. So if you have any ideas about that as well, reach out to me. If there's anything you think we should be including in that kind of information.
And let me just add, could I add one footnote? I stuck my nose out and sent an email to Mayor of Hamilton and said, whoever is interviewing for a new fire chief, we are anticipating and hoping you will tell this person that part of their job is being a partner with us in Fire in the Root. We've not had the pleasure of their involvement so far. And we would really like to see that. And so I'm thinking, I even mentioned helping us maybe with some assessments, because
Mhm.
firefighters really have credibility with people in the community. So we'll see if that goes anywhere.
And then to round out the assessment team report, Kristen, somehow she hasn't left yet fully. She's decided to, on her own time, unpaid, host a web assessment training on January 14th because she's insane and dedicated. So there's going to be basically a webinar assessment training on the 14th. I'm going to forward that link to all Fire in the Root members. So if you're interested, you'll get an email from me probably on Thursday or Friday, and with the details of that training. It's something that you just attend online on your computer, since there's no in-person spots in Missoula.
Do you have any clue as to the timing that day?
I
Oh.
don't yet. We're nailing that down on Thursday afternoon.
3:30.
So 3:30?
1:30 to 3:30.
Ken said
Perfect.
1:30 to 3:30.
Perfect. I must
Please, that's
be out of the loop
that-
on that one then. 1:30 to 3:30, and I'll shoot you guys that as I get that link on Thursday.
Also, now that I've got my audio working, about the wildfire movie venue, I know it's not your favorite venue, but they let us show movies there about climate for free at the Daily Funeral Home.
Hey, whatever works. As we all learned, it's a pretty nice spot and it holds a lot of people. So I think it's something we'll definitely keep in mind.
All right. Are you gonna give the bylaws team report or am I?
I think maybe I'll pass it on to you. I've been talking too much.
We did file our application for 501c3, but it was rejected because we filed under the organization name and they want an individual's name. And so we are trying to figure out if we put an individual's name there, does that leave a lot of personal financial liability on one person?
Yes,
Gary says yes.
having done that personally myself, that I'm trying to do in my personal business, yes, that puts liability. And it then becomes, his individual, his TIN is what you're gonna have to use. His, sort of either be his social security or his taxpayer identification number. And basically, he or she, whoever takes that role, is accepting it as a sole proprietor of the business.
That seems weird though, because
Yes.
there's plenty of nonprofits that are incorporated. you're required to have a board of directors, but
Right.
you have a fictitious name, if you will. And so that they're
But you can get an attorney or a registered agent,
right.
or rather than, and one of the individuals, you can have an individual in that, serving that function. Which Judy's been exploring some of that with
Right.
an attorney.
I thought I could just send a quick email to a DNRC attorney and get them to give us a quick answer. And they said, no, we're DNRC, we can't give you advice. You have to get your own lawyer. And so that was
the
that.
reply to the email you sent.
Yes, and so I asked Ella or Thayer if they could ask him the same question. And Ella did that, and she probably hasn't seen a response yet, I'm guessing.
I did get a response, about 15 minutes ago. And unfortunately, the response is about the same, is DNRC lawyers cannot provide legal advice to an entity that isn't DNRC, even if it's something that DNRC is involved with. However, he did give us answer a question of whether or not a DNRC employee could be the incorporator of Fire in the Root. And he said he doesn't see a legal issue with that. It's more of that individual responsibility. And if the entity wants a government employee to be their incorporator, which I don't see as a great option for longevity.
Right.
It's just, I mean, all I can say is this is so weird because when we did the state level 501c3, we didn't, I don't remember this issue. I mean, it was 5 years ago, but this is alien territory.
Right, and it's the state that pushed it back to us, rejected it.
Yeah,
So
no, I get it.
it has changed.
Right.
Approximately 6 months ago, the Tired Iron Tractor Club decided to look into doing a 501. And they were going to allow us to apply, or we did apply, as the Tired Iron Tractor Club. That was acceptable. What we did, all we had to do was have a president, vice president, and secretary of treasury.
Yeah. On our application, we did have 3 names. We had mine and Ken's and Mike's as temporary, well, we called them initial trustees, meaning temporary to start with, and that wasn't good enough.
Register with the Secretary of State
Yes,
as a nonprofit,
yes,
Right.
and they still reject it.
yes.
And that's odd.
Secretary of State's office had sent it back.
Yeah, it came back as an error because our incorporator was Fire in the Root, which you can't, the entity that's filing can't be its own incorporator. We need to name an individual, but we don't know who that individual should be legally.
Right.
We don't know
And
what kind of liability they're gonna have.
right. Kendall has a friend who is a lawyer, and he was going to talk to him and see if we could find a way to get an answer without spending hundreds of dollars on a lawyer's fees.
Another question you might consider, let's say Bill Smith becomes that person. What if Bill Smith is killed in a car accident or
Right.
decides to drop out of the organization? You just transfer it easily to another person?
I
Not-
guess, usually, have a taxpayer identification
Not yet.
number.
This is the first step, and then we go
That, the
to the next step.
tax identification number is the second step, but the IRS will put third step.
So we're stuck at the first step.
And then Sam. Some.
Just like you. Makes it
That-
possible. Get them and all the other best care possible. Think of it like history. It is just 19.
Stop it.
Mhm.
Russ, can you tell if that's Ella trying to speak to us?
They're all muted.
So I'm not sure.
Oh. Okay, well, whoever that was, sorry, we didn't hear you. So anyway, we will continue to pursue that, but we are stuck at this point.
I go out, I'm just saying, I mean, especially since someone else said they did just more recently. I couldn't hear exactly who it was, but that they had had a group that sounded like was accepted recently with just a name for the group.
Right.
I don't know. I'd try the Secretary of State's office and try and find out what that, what they think would answer that error. if we just have to say the 3 trustees will fill the, president, secretary, and treasurer positions, maybe. It just doesn't sound, yeah, it just sounds weird.
Yeah, we thought so too. So we will be pursuing that, but as of now, we're a little stuck. Maybe they just don't like us. All right. Old business, Qualtrics and tracking hours. Do you have any
Everything seems
news?
to be going well. People seem to be able to jump on there and everybody recently that's put in has put their name, so that makes it easy for me, so I can figure out who's doing what, so. Don't
Are
have any
we-
issues with me.
Are we going to be able to see at some point what we put in so that we know where we left off and we're
Yeah, I can
not
print that out.
duplicating? Yeah, that's where I'm stuck. I don't know where I stopped and I don't want to duplicate.
Nope, that's easy enough to do.
Okay,
Oh, it is?
And I can go in and see under your name when the last entry was and kind of have that period of time of when you put in and how many hours you have. I did that for Mike Kent. I sent him. I mean, I'm happy to do that for individuals too, if you want to. Just give me your email and then I can just pull that piece, that same little readout that I made for Mike. To show you what your hours are. When you put them in, it'll tell me all of that information. I
okay.
can just send it to you.
And actually, could I back up just a little, since we were talking about bylaws, our, team was talking about, an interview process in the future when we have board members that apply to be board members. And you were going to get us some sample applications for future board members.
And I have those ready to email to you.
Okay,
So those
Awesome.
are ready. Yep.
awesome. Okay, Dave Tingley's here, but I don't see Josh, and I thought Josh was gonna give us a fuels report, but I bet it's Dave.
Looks like it is, and that's great. I can give a bit of a summary. We met yesterday as a group of fuels folks. I do have some notes from that meeting. I can give a bit, like I said, a bit of an update.
Can you hear him, Ella?
Yes, I can.
So some of the highlights of the conversation from that meeting, and Gary can kind of fill in some of the details that I missed. There's a potential for a pellet production site at the old stone container facility that could result in a potential outlet for biomass, either via the cogen or product into the pellet. More to come on that, but Gary's talked to the guy a few times and we're trying to get that fellow to come to the county to visit with us and give a presentation on what he's trying to do and his capacities and have a Q&A session. So if that happens, we'll reach out to this group to provide that time and place for folks to come listen to that presentation and ask questions.
So it's Grand Teton Enterprises, the owners, his name's Doug Roberts. He lives in Williston, Idaho. He's got a partner in Canada, and I'm blanking on the Canadian guy's name. They're gonna put, right now, they're in the process of dismantling the cogen, 50 megawatt cogen facility that basically, it's an incinerator, burns biomass, any kind of biomass. They have essentially the same system set up in downtown Chicago where they're burning garbage, but they're not gonna burn garbage in this one. Anything that's biomass, so you got hay, straw, that old pile of ground bilge out there that's all moldy, they're gonna be buying that kind of stuff. He says they've got on order somewhere around 85 different trucks, so there's gonna, they've modified these trucks to have shipping containers on them with winches, so he's essentially gonna drop the shipping containers off and let us fill them, the shipping containers have been modified, so they're, instead of having the open swing doors, they're more like a dump truck in the back. So they can run through into the facility there at Stone Container
Now,
and
where is Stone Container?
Frenchtown.
Oh,
It's the old Smurfit Stone Mill.
Are these storage systems or are there emissions?
The emissions are coming out and going into the greenhouses that they're gonna set up. So the greenhouses are going to, essentially ingest all of those greenhouse gases. Another waste product is, that's gonna be the greenhouses. So those are all gonna be pretty, pretty high-tech systems.
Is there ash or any other particular, or does that all get?
Well, the ash will be a big issue, and then that's what I'm looking at. So the ash will probably be distributed across the board somehow. Because that's basically, it's good, it's basically, it's just biomass to be like, burn the forest, so. There will be ash, there will be they're not going to pump the greenhouse gases in here. Like sort of a stone in that.
If they build the construction waste, something metal,
They won't take that.
will take it.
They won't take the building construction waste. It's only gonna be, raw fuels like, forest / residuals. Roadside residuals. They've got a bunch of machinery that they're gonna bring down there. And they can, said, we'll even take stumps, but they're not gonna take that, building projects.
Ballots and stuff like that.
Well, the pellets are different. Pallets, oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, no, they won't take anything like that, because you can't,
Can't spread that in the forest.
well, you can't run it through a chip reed.
Yeah.
Or even a grinder, so that dirty stuff they're gonna use for a grinder. And I may be speaking wrongly, I've just never addressed that issue. He just said he's not gonna take anything garbage wise.
I wanna catch that. I'd be surprised if Forest Love would bring the product and spread it out and then shoot the rest there. It's really introductory right now. There's early conversation that we can get him invited and get him their own written word and a block of time reserved where folks can ask and answer questions.
yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, very concept right now. I don't want to get too far ahead. Gary's optimistic. I'm optimistic too. It could reduce the cost of some of our treatments. Yeah, that's on our radar. So we talked about that yesterday. Josh with RCD, y'all know he's working on some grant applications. I'll finish with the Forest Service update. DNRC has some planned burning in Darby Sula area, potentially up to 150 acres, this spring 500 acres total. The Mule Deer Foundation plans to continue to do the work they have planned up in the East Fork, that's on the National Forest. And the NRCS has taken applications for 2025 with funding underway. With respect to a comprehensive update from the National Forest, in 2024, we completed work on almost 21,000 acres. 95% of that was in the wildland urban interface. 8,600 acres of that was some type of burning, to include pile burning and broadcast burning. Partners that are currently overseeing work on the National Forest includes Forest Forever, National Wild Turkey Federation, Mule Deer, for Valley County, Fort Gary's doing with us on kind of west of Darby, and the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. So what the Elk Foundation does, they have given us, and we still have some funding to support prescribed fire, which we typically use for aerial ignition when we do a helicopter burning. Also in 2024, entities that supported prescribed fire that came to the area that weren't from here, that were from here first is the Montana DNRC, multiple VFDs from within the county also helped us with prescribed fire. And then last spring, we had a significant influx of resources from around the country to include California, Arizona, Utah, Oregon, Tennessee, Alaska, Washington. Double check Matt if I'm missing it.
Missouri.
And Missouri.
Missouri.
So planned implementation for 2025, looking to have a footprint in prescribed fire in 2025. 5 to 10,000 acres again is what we're hoping to get. One of the bigger, more significant burns that we want to kind of put out on the radar for everyone is from that Victor V north to the Sherritt footprint, really. So we're looking at 1 to 3,000 acres of burning is on the radar. We probably won't get anywhere near 3,000 acres in 2025, but have plans to get that in the next few years. We have 2 to 4,000 in the east fork of the Bitterroot, 1 to 2,000 in the Nez Pass area plan. That's probably a fall entry. And then 1 to 2,000 plan, just kind of miscellaneous across the boards. And when I say plan, that's acres that we are having burn plans on the books, ready to do implementation, that we're typically fortunate to get 50% of what we have planned. So if I say we're looking at 5 to 10,000 acres, last year we got, what did I say, 8,500 acres. That was a good year last year, phenomenal year for us. We duplicated that again. Have had a phenomenal year. So that's kind of what Bitterroot has planned, and a very quick summary on what I remember from yesterday.
Do those acres include some of your, wetland fire acres?
No,
So
those,
you don't, that doesn't count as an accomplishment? Different kind?
yeah, so the fiscal year ends the end of September, starts the beginning of October. Our business rules require us to claim those in years when the fire is controlled. We don't control large fires like that till November, December, so those would show.
We're starting out way ahead of the game.
Those count a little bit differently. They count for reduced hazardous fuels. Yeah, but like, as far as folks on the Bitterroot National Forest feeling like we got credit for doing that work, the regional office typically holds that out as part of theirs, but we make.
Forests don't meet the target.
Yeah, we make the case though that the Bitterroot did the need, Bitterroot National Forest.
Target.
Yeah. Big time with there.
Okay.
So.
They're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, you know, it's like.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, it's kind of off topic. When can we expect a environmental impact statement from the final decision from,
We talked about this afternoon. It feels, and I'll use Matt's analogy, it feels like every day we're still, what'd you say, 40 or 60 days
That
out?
was 60 days out. It's kind of like the carrot he's hanging out there. It seems to stay.
And that's for what company? Power.
Right now, we're looking towards the end of February for the next six weeks. It's just been constant. It just comes up the back end. This is late. Right then, on February, and we've been, it's gonna be coming up on about 9 months of that, so. Tentatively,
So what's causing the delay?
There's a whole host of issues, a lot of it, the consultation, with endangered species and other. Botany folks, critters. So wildlife, fisheries, just there's all archaeology, heritage stuff, all that consultation. And changing the plans last second, when they've already submitted one way, if you want to change something, you gotta basically reset and redo that, so. Just continues to kind of trip us up. Especially if we build 144,000 acres, that's a big project, so.
Right.
Mostly prescribed fire or all prescribed fire, or are there separate component plans?
It's hazardous fuels reduction, including prescribed fire,
And mechanical treatments,
no clear cut.
and they're both in the same decision. Same impact statement and decision and consultation.
And there's no incentives for these consultations to move along, I guess.
I wouldn't describe it that way. They're just, a limited capacity on those folks to have consultations from the Fish and Wildlife Service. And that list is huge and grows every day. It's got to be prioritized on what they're gonna work on first. I don't think it's gonna drag it feet. I think it's truly a lack of capacity.
Hey. Thank you, Dave, and others. Did you miss us, Dave? You haven't been here in a while.
You know, well, I was gonna, yes, of course. I didn't realize how much is kind of what I was trying to get at.
Good recovery.
That's what I was gonna say. Back cut me off.
He was telling me earlier that he missed.
Okay, well, we have,
I have,
oh, Al, yes?
in the latest magazine from Montana Farm Bureau, public spokesman, there's an article by Mark Lewing. I don't know if anybody knows him. I don't.
I just bought his book, but I haven't read it.
Fire in the Hole.
Yeah,
Yeah, Mark Lewing, he lives in Valley County. And he's, been a firefighter for a long time. But in his book, he talks about, prescribed burns, fuels reduction, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if we would want to reach out to him, maybe come and talk about his book.
I was gonna read his book before I even mentioned that. Cause I don't know if he's friend or foe. In the summary, he says he's been in fire for years and
Yeah.
he has a lot of recommendations about where we should go. So I don't know if he's gonna be helpful or if he's gonna be a problem that we can't do anything about and we waste our time.
Good point.
Anyway.
So I bring that up. I just read it today.
Yeah, I wondered if any of you forest guys know him. Or since, it's-
Lewing.
Laura, do you know him from the old days?
What's the name again?
Lewing, Lewing.
Mark.
First
Yeah.
name Mark.
Oh, Mark Lewing, Lew?
Yes.
He
Just
was,
wrote a book.
yeah,
called
yeah, no,
Fire in
okay.
the-
He was, if I've got the right person, the Ravalli County forestry person, I think from the extension office for many years. I'm saying the 70s, 80s and 90s. I remember him if I've got the right guy, I remember him coming out to, look at trees and discuss shelter belt stuff.
Well, I guess we'll have to read his book, see if it's somebody that has some new ideas we haven't heard and we want to flesh them out with him.
Now, very competent forester if I've got the right guy. But I don't know. I never discussed fire with him, I have to admit.
I was emailing his phone number.
All right, well, if anybody wants to do a fast read before I get around to reading, I'll loan you my book. I've already purchased it. It's on Amazon. All right, we have come to the end of our regular discussions. And we talked about in the parking lot, we still had insurance issues. But I don't think we have any progress on getting anybody to talk about some of the answers to our questions. Blake?
I want maybe want me to talk a little bit
Okay,
from the fire depth at Montana Learning Moment, citywide network, fire practitioners.
can you hear Blake?
I can speak up a little bit. So with that network, talking with all, a big interest across the state is obviously insurance. And I've been talking with the Tri-County Fire Safety Group, and they have a former commissioner, or former vice commissioner, the CDI, and another individual on kind of the statewide insurance realm. So I'm gonna go to that meeting on Thursday and talk with them, but bring that back to the outreach, just so we can try to get kind of more statewide discussion going with, try to get the new commissioner in the room too, and just get a conversation going to make sure people are on the same page as the city administration coming in with the commissioner.
Has he actually started work yet?
I think they started a couple days ago. Seems like he's good. He's got a good viewpoint on it. But yeah, it's very early in the stage, but I'll talk to you guys updated.
Okay.
What I got planned, I would be March, April.
Okay, great.
Yeah, March, for our after meeting
Oh,
topic is already set for March.
March, okay.
February and April. So
April one. I was looking at maybe doing more of a like a big live webinar, just kind of get the wide range.
yeah, it's not a short topic.
No, I think that flowers.
Yeah.
Just replying on Mark Louis, he was the Hamilton unit manager for the DNRC, so he was there's position from there.
Oh,
For an instance, that he would be doing looking at shelter belts and tree health on private property. That's typically state and private funded.
okay, so my recollection was we didn't have a lot else in the parking lot. Did somebody else? have
I
any-
was wondering, if Gary, do you want to share kind of the, rough plan and idea right now for that home hardening workshop on the 14th?
So I've reached out to the Montana Emergency Disaster Mitigation Group, or FEMA group, in the third northeastern Montana. And they're gonna come down on February 14th, and we're setting up a home hardening and wildfire preparedness sort of workshop that day for the event center, Valley County Event Center at the Fairgrounds. They have money that is available. They're gonna present the topic. The money available to install ignition resistant material on the home. So say you do a wildfire assessment on a home, you will have that ability out the other side to show the homeowner, this money's available for cost share, I believe. I'm not for sure, but I think it's a 75-25 match. So that homeowners can install new ignition resistant materials for decks, for siding, box in eaves, replace shake roof, replace wood siding, basically everything that has to do with the home. Install sprinkler systems on the outside of the homes that will be triggered when a wildfire approaches, so that the sprinklers will, basically, it's a permanent sprinkler hit system for the home. Along with that, in the morning, I have envisioned in the morning, we're gonna have after action review from the 2025 or 2024 fire season. I've talked to Matt Anderson. He's on board with giving a presentation. And Matt Young is here, he's on board. Dave Tingley, I think we're gonna have a panel of some kind. At one point in the morning, it's just kind of happening here. And then we're gonna move into vegetation management. From vegetation management, I have Jason Glenn from the NRCS is going to talk about funding available, the EQ IP funding, so it's, environmental quality incentive program for conservation on the lands, private lands. And then we're gonna move into the FEMA group for the feature presentation.
This is all in one day. Wow. And the 14th of February, something like that?
And it is Valentine's Day.
Wow. Is that right?
That's a big agenda.
That's supposed to take, say,
Yeah.
So if we have enough interest, it will fill in 15th. I have to talk with Sarah Hartley, the program director at that meeting. See if she's willing to roll over for another issue. There will be space available for people anybody that wants to set up a booth in the corner, by the corners of buildings, so that there will be opportunities for people to disseminate information to the public. I did manage to round up, not a very big grant, but it's some money for it. I'm looking for sponsors and other grant fundings for that activity. Mainly maybe a sponsor to provide refreshments and lunch for participants.
What's the time on that?
It's February 14th.
I mean, the time of the day.
Between 8 and 16.
Sounds like you better make it 6 o'clock in the morning. It's a big. So home hardening, you're talking about homes that already exist. So new building construction is not a part of what you're doing.
Not at the moment. We're just looking at people that already have those homes that are getting wildfire in their face. So somebody bought a home even just this year, and that they'll qualify for it. So, and I think that's fine.
We've tried over the time that we've been in existence to get the Builders Association to be more involved in understanding the need for the kind of building materials that are more safe for wildfires. And we've had minimal impact on their interest, shall I say. Maybe if they knew about this and they thought that people were going to start getting serious about home hardening, they might be more interested in building homes to start with that have these building materials. I would like to see you make sure they know about it, and hopefully they're willing to send at least one representative to hear what's going on.
I think when you look at a builders association from a contractor standpoint, the cheaper they can make the building, the more money they're gonna make. And that's where they're at. So I think your issue, and it was a big issue at, the LC Collaborative in Missoula, they did, policies. So it's the policy and regulation that they really kind of focused in on, and they focused in on zoning, and planning, county planning. Ravalli County doesn't have that. Ravalli County doesn't have the master and the comprehensive policy plan
Yes,
to implement that. And I don't believe that Ravalli County is interested in pursuing that avenue.
right.
When you talk land use, and I just mentioned land use. And I didn't put planning or anything in it, and that got pretty much shut down really quick, because when the commissioners have used that term, they get landowners coming to them and saying,
Don't tell me what to
you
do.
can't do this, my land, you're not telling me what
Right,
to do.
right.
My land, so that's pretty much a county lead.
There is another dimension to that too. I mean, somebody that has a house, built, they upgrade all kinds of things over and above the bare minimum for house and if they're informed and interested in a more survivable structure, that's a relatively small investment. Okay, this is just an aside, but an interesting one. A retired LA County Fire chief was on this LA News channel that we were watching before I came up here. And he said, he was talking about amber storms. And he said that a lot of these houses are catching fire in the attics because of the vents. He said, when you take these vents out of the box and you put them in your home, they're meant to keep rodents out, not embers. And it was just this short news thing, but it was so impactful, you know? And he said, for a few dollars, you can put screens in there that actually keep embers out. That's a relatively small investment for $1 million house. And I thought, that's the kind of thing that people need to hear before they build their houses or while they're building their houses. Not when their houses are burning down already, but nonetheless,
And I
my
think there's
point
a
is
market
that
for
people
that.
spend money to upgrade all kinds of things in their houses. And it doesn't have to be because the land use plans and the building codes change.
Right.
Because they want to do it.
Manufactured, you know, because there used to be, you had wood siding or no siding. Now you can get those concrete composite siding, that's what we have on our place.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, when Ellen did our assessment, she said, you don't have to worry about that stuff burning in these little holes, you know, like you're talking
Right.
about. So we're getting plugs for those, but if people, I mean, I think most people don't even know that stuff exists.
Right.
So having someone who just manufactures materials and say, if you are replacing siding, you can do this, if you just need to plug holes, you can do this. Letting people know about options that are available.
Yeah, and you don't have to change, you don't have to cross the land use planning hurdle, and the zoning and building code hurdle in Ravalli County to do that.
Right. We talk to people at a lot of the events we do that are new to Montana, moving from California and other places where whole communities have burned down, and they're more interested in doing mitigation and knowing about building materials than the people that have been here forever. People that have been here forever, the old Bitterrooters think they know everything and they're gonna be fine. But the people that are moving here are really interested. They know they're moving to a place that has high risk for wildfire. And they're the people that maybe haven't built a house yet, and they would probably like to see some builders that know what to do.
Yeah, so getting the Builders Association tied in, you got 10. However, that fits into the big picture. If you are really valuable addition to your
I'm gonna reshingle my house in the spring, and I just today received a sample of steel shingles. Not standing seam, not delta rib, but steel shingles. And they're a bit expensive, but they look just like shingles.
Yeah, and they last
60 to 80 years.
Yeah. Not gonna be your problem to read it. Yeah, I mean, we did the same thing. We took an Oregon coast, replaced a cedar shake roof with architectural shingles and cedar siding and cedar shingles, sawn shingles with fiber cement. And you have to walk up to those
Yeah.
panels of shingles to tell that they're not wood. You can't, and I don't have to paint them. And then sandblasting that it gets every time there's a southern storm doesn't take The old ones, you could hold the old ones that were put up in the eighties up to the light on the windward side of the building. And you could speed through it. You know how they raised the grain on things for signs? It looked like that. Every single looked like that. Now, it's gonna be somebody else's problem regardless,
Yeah.
even if we put on new cedar, but that's important to know that stuff.
Yeah, and we tried to get the building association to hone in on the landscaping, on the homes that they were showing in the home tours that they do in September. Because hundreds of people go through there and they say, oh, this looks pretty. I want something just like this. And, you know, they've got the wood, bark going right up to the, I mean, it's touching the siding, and they've got some of the things like junipers that I hate for these show homes. And we couldn't even get them excited about listening to anything that would make the home safer during wildfires. So I'm always looking for ideas to get them interested in hearing our message, because they just don't get it. We actually had a booth next to the Builders Association at the February Home and Ranch Expo. And I talked to one of the builders because he heard me talking to people and goes, why are you so excited about what's under the eaves? And I said, because embers get in there. And he goes, when does that ever happen? He said, it's never happened here. But I said, just because we haven't had communities burned down yet, doesn't mean it won't happen. And why wouldn't you want to build a house that's safer for the people that you built it for? So he was a hard sell. He just didn't get it.
You always
Well,
have to
the-
get it and then they'll pressure the contractors to do it.
Right.
That market.
Laura, did you have something?
Well, I'd say, yeah, what he understood was it was gonna cost him more money. But a question about this whole presentation that's coming up, where will it be? I missed that. And also, will there be any part of it that discusses getting possible funding? Is that in the mix?
Yeah, the one Gary was talking about, he said was February 14th at the Fairgrounds Event Center. And FEMA was talking about some grant money, and NRCS had some funding as well.
Because publicizing that will bring people in, because, you know, it's the reason that people who are about to move here and build houses are kind of more interested is they generally have more funds available than people who've lived here forever. I mean, that's
Right.
just a reality.
Right.
Yeah, I've already got it. I talked with Craig.
Can you speak up, Gary? I'm not sure.
Oh,
where-
I've already got, the announcements going out. I've already got a place and mailer. It's gonna go out to, I think it's 22,000 county residents. Gonna go out in a mailer. So it'll be like the mailer you get in the mailbox from the mailman, or like Jerry Wessels or Hamilton Packing. In that little mailer, it's gonna be that. It's gonna be in there. We're gonna have a meeting, and we set it out Friday at, I believe, 9, right, Russ?
I'm not sure.
9 or 9:30, sometime in there at the Forest Service building in the closet room. We're gonna roll over some ideas. And get that mailer out probably 3 weeks before the event. So that everybody can get a good mailer. I've got an idea to put an ad in all the church flyers. So when you go to church, everybody that goes to church is gonna grab that flyer and see an ad in it. Gonna put flyers probably on the forecourt of every grocery store in county. So I'm hoping to have that event center standing room only.
No,
Is
well,
there going
money, Yeah, possible funding, mention that there will be some discussion of that if there will be, because that will attract people generally.
There will be funding, Laura. That's what the event was set up to show people the funding that will be available for them to install ignition resistant materials on their homes.
So with all of this talk about home hardening, is there gonna be room with all this information for a little plug for free home assessments? And do we want that, Ella? What if we can't handle a whole lot of people wanting assessments?
At least it's a good
I
time.
can handle it all right. We want those assessments.
So you said, yeah, we'd love to have a plug for home assessment.
Fire in the group, I was assuming already, and I hadn't talked with Ella, but I was assuming they would have a booth similar to what they had set up at the fair. Something similar, and then maybe, and then maybe even Ella could provide a presentation, a 30-minute presentation in that, or maybe she could sit on one of the panels. I haven't quite mapped it out, whether we're gonna have panel discussions or just straightforward presentations, or kind of a mix between panel presentation kind of thing.
So that's a Friday, February 14th.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you in town, Ella?
I knew you were gonna ask me that. Yes, I'm planning on, in some form or another, either giving a presentation or sitting on the panel and providing all those materials and info to round out that event. To give some info for the home assessments.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason I had Saturday, February 15th as that town hall kind of FEMA presentation. I don't know where I got that date. Must have had a dream about it.
And it could spill over into Saturday, February. Oh, sure. Like you say, it's kind of a big, throw everything together in one day.
Right.
But we have the event center, so that was a promise.
Gary, we have that planning meeting this Friday at 9:30 in the Blodgett room.
Thank you. So anybody's welcome to attend.
We can schedule more if we need more time as well.
I think an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's out to 12, isn't it? 9:30, 12.
Yeah, maybe we put 12.
So that's 2.5 hours. I think that's more than enough time.
Okay. Well, we might have beat that one to death. Does anybody have another topic?
I can keep going with that. I've been working with, I want to say, Miss Halledge over at high school. We're gonna start up, outdoor classroom, and if everything goes right, in late April or May. And so it's geared toward high school. So these are graduating seniors in the classroom, education and outreach. And they will be looking at the projects we're gonna start implementing on the rail trail. It's just off of Golf Course Road. I don't know if you're familiar. I talked with the Tammany Hill LLC, Peter Van Tine, the director, and he's very excited to have this project started. We're going to plant trees on the rail trail. If everything goes right, we're gonna address the overhead hazards in those older cottonwood trees. Going to make more of a high school educational program that will sustain itself year after year. One high school class leave, they'll leave a legacy for the next class, and they'll be the monitoring and the essential long-term management program for those trees.
So is this when you say outdoor classroom, is it a one day thing or is it a series of?
It's, about a month and a half, and I haven't got the fill of this flight mapped out. Still in the infantile stages, Mrs. Howledge and myself are gonna sit down and start making it happen. So if anybody's interested in presenting in that, presentation in front of the children, it's a great educational opportunity. For those young adults, I should say, not children.
Right. You hear all that, Ella?
Yep, I'll be sending you an email, Gary.
Okay. Anybody else have another topic? We still have a few minutes.
Nobody else is gonna go, I can keep going. So we're setting up a volunteer group. I'm spearheading it for the county parks, the overgrown county parks. And we're setting up a volunteer group. I talked with Dan McConnell and Josh Smith. And we're gonna go into the county park system, like the Blanchard Rotary Park down here to get into Hamilton. Those overgrown trees. We're gonna go in and basically do a hazardous fuel elimination program in there this spring. That's going to start probably, I would say sometime in March, so we don't have the air quality, the air quality burn down, so we can do some green burning in there and just get that, those hazardous fuels out of the way.
Green burning, what does green burning?
Cut and burn pile the same day.
Doesn't that produce a lot of smoke when they're green?
Yeah, I think when he's doing it when there's no burn bans, you keep issues.
I think what Gary's referring to, correct me if I'm wrong, is that by green, he means the traditional sense of green in terms of environmentally friendly. So he's cutting dead material and burning it the same day.
Right.
So it has a lower footprint in the duration time that fuel sits there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You're not cutting live material.
That is incorrect. We are gonna cut along the line here. So when you say that there's a lot more smoke in that green stuff, the only thing that's coming out of that more so than particulates emission is water vapor. So if you do a classic chemical breakdown of smoke, the only reason you can see it as smoke is because you're looking at the water vapor, looking at the moisture content in the material burning off. So, and I can explain that a little bit better in your house. If you have natural gas, you have those carbon monoxide, dioxide, monoxide detectors and methane detectors in there. Those are in there because you can't see those greenhouse gases, the carbons, carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, all that stuff. So the only reason we see smoke is the water vapor. We say it's gonna produce more smoke, yes, but it's gonna produce more water vapor as the water vapor burns off.
Okay, so we aren't gonna have any air quality issues with people calling the county and saying, why are you letting this happen?
Well, typically you'll have that and you can't make a meal. A chef, a world-renowned chef cannot make a meal for 100 people and have all 100 people like it. It's just people that don't care to have it. The thing about burning here in the valley is that when we burn here in the valley, we typically do a weather assessment to see how the ventilation works. And most of that smoke that comes out in the valley here goes west or east, sorry. So it goes east. So all of the smoke that clogs up in this Bitterroot Valley, except if we have like the Lowell Peat Fire or the Sheriff Fire, one of the big fires burning, most of the smoke in the valley will go east. most of the smoke that gets clogged into this valley is coming from Idaho, Oregon, Washington, and California. And then it gets down underneath of the inversion, and the inversion sets in and doesn't go away from it.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm just kind of asking if we're sending mixed messages. By last spring, we had this reduced smoke emissions workshop where we talked about building your burn piles small and having a chimney in there so that you have the least amount of smoke and it burns efficiently. Is this burn gonna be completely different? We're not gonna pay attention to how we build the piles and we're going to have what looks like a lot of smoke. We're not talking out of both sides of our mouth, are we?
Okay, so typically, when you build a pile, gotta understand the physics of flame, so heat goes up, right? So when you build these little piles like that, you've gotta put more fuel on them to get them totally consumed. So if you build the piles narrow and tall, the top half will burn down on the bottom. So you're not really wasting a lot of time to throwing the piles back together. So I know from experience, they want the piles at least 6 feet tall.
Yeah, 6 feet they consider pretty small. Are you understanding where I'm coming from, Eric?
Yeah, I know.
No?
No, I understand where you're coming from, and you can construct the piles the way that you presented in the reduced smoke burning workshop.
Right,
But there's two parts to that. One is the amount of emissions associated with the fuels in the pile, as well as the construction of the pile itself.
right.
And so no, we wouldn't be talking out of two sides of our mouth, because you can still construct the piles the same way. But you put fuel into that pile that has a lot more emissions associated with it than a different set of fuel, then you're gonna get more emissions. You're gonna have less than if you constructed it poorly, but you're still gonna have more emissions than if you had low emission fuel, but.
And it doesn't sound like we're talking about, these big piles where, it might be the stuff on the inside, it's not burning and
Yeah, those,
they'll go for days.
right, yeah, some of the piles that Peter showed that were activity fuels from
Big jobs.
big logging operations.
Yeah.
And they were just all jumbled together and they had a lot of dirt in them and they were terrible. They were terrible piles and they burned poorly. And he had the images to show how poorly.
Right.
Uh,
And I
So-
suppose these old cottonwoods are mostly dead in the center, so they'll probably burn faster than green ponderosa pines.
well, if they're all dead cottonwood, they burn pretty well. But if they're a live shell, cottonwood doesn't burn very well when it's cut green. It has lots of moisture. And I would submit that smoke has more components to it than just water.
Did you read that? You can hear it. I said it's got
That
carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide.
So I'm saying that the visible
Dioxide.
components are more than just water vapor. Because there's particulate matter in there as well, which is why we have PM4 and PM10 issues with smoke. But aside from that, if you build good piles, they're gonna burn better than if you build poor piles. They burn hotter and more effectively because they draft them.
You can see by the plane itself.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
it was pretty obvious when we had two files out here. One was done in 20 minutes, the other was really just getting going.
so Gary, I wasn't trying to rain on your parade.
No, you're fine.
I just wondered, given the messages we send, are you gonna use this as an opportunity to also teach the kids, the seniors, how to burn effective piles so that our message is consistent?
You're mixing the two projects up. This is a volunteer project. This doesn't consist of the outdoor classroom. That was with the Cottonwood over by Big Corral and Priest Lane.
Oh, the volunteers, though, you're gonna have volunteers for this overgrown county parks project.
I mean, I could put a component into that, say we pile these piles of limbs up and just let them, let them decompose naturally, then, you know, they're gonna vent methane. Because that's what comes out of them. They're gonna vent methane, sulfur, nitrogen. The nitrogen will go into the soils and the sulfur will go into the soils. But the methane is the big one that they'll vent. That's the greenhouse gas. In decomposition, the methane comes out.
Yeah. Well, I don't know enough about any of the technicalities. I just was trying to figure out, are we going to continue to give consistent messaging on how we burn fuels? When we have the
There's an
opportunity,
opportunity for consistent messaging on building the piles well,
yeah,
so that they're effective,
yeah.
regardless of what kind of fuel we are putting into them.
So I don't know if you were considering that, and maybe it's none of my business, but it came out as a question in my mind.
Well, there will be consideration in the ventilation. If there's an inversion set in, there's no burning. I won't personally like it. I mean, it's just, that's just.
Yeah.
I have confidence that Gary is gonna teach these young people how to build a chimney fire also.
Or whoever these volunteers are. How are you gonna get your volunteers?
That's just gonna be word of mouth and outreach. So whoever wants to come out and throw some shit into a pile.
Yeah. That's where I would like the messaging to be consistent, because they're volunteers, they're people in the community, and we've already given a specific message, and I hope we're being somewhat consistent there. Anyway.
Yeah.
Enough of that. Sometimes I don't mind my own business.
Oh, that's a very valid question. Actually,
And in the back row, you were raising your hand and
Do we have education component for dry fire in the valley? This, I'm pretty new here, so I don't know, what's, that's looking like. I know there's dried campfire, concept that just started with the state, but that's kind of all getting shaken out with legislation as far as like liability for, private owners. But right now, it's just kind of, you apply for your permit, but if you say, hey, file permit, do you know about smoke lit, or atmosphere monitoring, or, weathering? They may be like, I don't know, they say I can burn today, right? So I just don't know where we're at with the valley for dry fire education, either broadcast or support power.
well, Eric, do you wanna kind of weigh in on that?
Outside of agency, let's say general landowner who doesn't have an agency alone.
Well, I mean, I think like the seminar we did last summer was to that effect. I don't remember you being there.
No, he's newer than that.
Yeah, so if, is that posted on YouTube still, I think?
Ella, is that a link on our Facebook page?
I thought that they had posted it on
It's
YouTube.
on
but-
YouTube, on our Facebook, and I think it's also on our website.
So, I mean, we physically built the piles out here. And, has a demonstration of it.
And then Eric also gave a presentation on the air quality
The
issues.
quality and the burn permit. So, I mean, that was kind of the initial stages of that effort. I I don't know that there's that organized of a education program right now on it.
No, I
And-
think we're trying to fill that gap.
Yeah, there's nothing, there's nothing other than the efforts of fire in the room. Especially for kind of what you're talking about, more of a large scale, if somebody's got, acres or something, let's do something about it, so.
And the ag right now is talking about doing, that's my first two steps towards. Doing now. Al's got, you're talking about some.
The range,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The range running. Those are, to my knowledge, like the first
Yeah,
few
sure.
steps in that
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
That's how.
And we'll do the reduce smoke workshop again this year, but it'll have some additional dimensions to it that
Right,
did not have last year.
and
Many
hope,
of the same ones too, of course.
and hopefully with the new fire chief coming on board, hopefully by spring, maybe we can get them to cooperate and help do some things that educate people more with us.
For valid, we just sent the date for the track fire training. It's shouldn't be state of Montana in the history, it's coming up, that's on the.
I just talked to the city supervisor about that.
Okay, so we'll be
On the email the other day.
Roll it nice. It's the big one, just for the training.
So Ella, you're probably not hearing that because Blake is facing the other way, but he's talking
Oh.
about a future.
I think it's a Trex, it's a prescribed fire training exchange, that's a national model. But it's intensive multi-day training where you go and you get certified to learn how to broadcast for effectively.
Did Ella get the same email that you're talking about?
I think so. Ella, did you get the update on the Trex from Julia?
Yeah, I actually applied earlier today. To
That's
review
good
it,
for
to
me.
submit the application.
You okay?
Oh, yeah. That's something.
Can you send that to me?
Could you send
Yeah.
that up, to membership, Ella?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
That's April 28th. So,
Wow, that's.
I can imagine.
Okay, you get some work done, just volunteer, you go on a workshop, you get some work.
That's longer than the old forestry king.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments people are dying to ask?
Got one.
Okay,
I
Al.
brought this up once before, but I think I've talked to a few people, but 25 years ago, I used to do some clearing and I lived in Georgia. And they would shut you down in a heartbeat if smoke left your industrial site. And if you were burning more than 20 cubic yards, they would shut you down right now, call the fire department in, and put your fire out if smoke left the site. So you're
If
probably,
the smoke left the site laterally,
anyway,
vertically, it was,
your fire had to be hot enough there was no smoke.
wow.
So I learned how to build big fires with no smoke.
And they being the state or
County or?
the
No, Georgia Forestry was over that
state?
state. So what it took to build a 100 cubic foot burn was a fire pit, 10 feet deep, 20 feet wide, and as long as it took to put 100 cubic yards, you had to put an air curtain on it.
You had to put a what?
It's called an air curtain destructor. It's just like a billows on somebody shoeing your horse, they heat up the shoes with air.
Right.
Well, when you put air in the bottom of that pit, you may have,
Blast burn.
basically it's a blast furnace, yeah,
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah.
You're putting fans on it?
Don't have to.
That's interesting.
After the storm we had this past fall, I had about 90 cubic yards to burn. And I put it in one pit. And all the green cottonwoods were in the bottom, so the coals, as they broke down, dehydrated. So they burned like old wood. And so all the dead brush is on top. And, I cross-stacked it all so air would get through it. And I don't have an air curtain destructor anymore. I used to have one. But when I moved here, I sold it because when I called the state, they had no idea what I was talking about. To see if it was worth bringing them or not. Because I didn't know what the rules were when I moved here. But, on my dozer, I hooked up a dozer to blow air out the front. I put that into my air curtain destructor, and it was enough air to keep the smoke, because I had only 3 days before the burn ban went on. And I needed to film. But it works, and anybody that builds, you think of 100 cubic yard fire, I think that's foolish. Sometimes you don't have a choice. But you can't do that kind of burn unless you got a dozer or a backhoe. So it's a bigger deal, but there was no smoke that left my place. My neighbor called me and said, I can see fire. I don't see any smoke. How do you do that? The combustion. Yeah.
So what would it take in terms of expense and know-how to build one of these inventions of yours?
Well, it's not mine. I just copied somebody else's when I built mine. But it had a 6-foot, 18-inch wide fan that took an 80 horsepower tractor to run. And then we piped out that air through 12-inch tubing with dampers on it, so you could aim the air in different places. Set it up on the side of the pit and then blow the air down into it. It cost me about $8,000 to build the one I had. To buy one yourself is about 30 grand for a small one. So it would be an industrial process, not a home one.
Well, I was gonna say, how about getting together with some ranchers and pooling your money and taking that thing from place to place?
I'd rather just build it and rent it out.
People that do that, they exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still, if you get back to that chemical equation that I just going, it's basic high school chemistry. All of those particulates are still in that. Don't call. All of those carbon dioxides, nitrogen dioxide, the sulfur dioxide, all of those greenhouse gases are still in that smoke column, but you're getting that fire hot enough to where it just vaporizes all of your water vapor, so you can't see the smoke. So all of that dangerous and hazardous stuff is still in that smoke column, and it's still going up in the air.
Depending on the heat of your fire, it does reduce it. It might consume 10 or 12% of it, as opposed to a not hot fire.
Yeah, it'll reduce it if you get a hotter, because it'll burn it. But the only real difference is when you're getting a dirty burn, you're emitting, instead of carbon dioxide, it's carbon monoxide, so it's not complete combustion. So it's a simple chemistry course that you can teach in high school. Really understand the maths in, maths out, and physical chemistry. Like Dave Tingley told me once, I used to use people and I try to explain oxygen on the periodic table. It's right there.
You would lose me in 1 minute.
It's H2O, but it's complex chemistry.
Well,
What you're describing is like a modern day wood stove with catalytic. It cycles that particular vacuum into the container, burns more of that, so less.
Less heat subside.
Well, I think you should invent that here and rent it out. And see if the county will give you a permit to do that. Well, that was awesome discussion. But we are out of time. So our next meeting, Russ, you have the date.
Yes.
Good one.
February 4th, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it's been real. Thank you for all attending and joining in on Zoom.
Did everybody sign in?
Yeah, if you have not remembered to sign in, please do so before you leave. And I guess you take care of adding the people that were zoomed in.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you. Enjoy, Ella.
Thank you. I got about 4 hours left, then I'm out of here.
Oh.
You got it.
Publications,
Bet.
firms. Should I hand it off to you?
Oh, you know what? Al just talked about having a meeting with the farm and ranch.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
No. Yeah.
Hold on, sure. You guys want some, I can just that.
You've seen that and would like that, do some too. Are you gonna come to the next out?